All right. Well, welcome everybody to MVP Office Hours. My name is Jared Kingston. I am the Director of Solution Engineering with Seven Summits and a Salesforce MVP. I help run the office hours along with Jackie Travieso and Dale Ziegler, who are fortunately unable to be with us today. So good thoughts with them as they are a huge help in making this thing run. If you're new to MVP Office Hours, we like to kick off each call with just covering community events that are coming up. So we include here links to all the events that Salesforce has going on. Certainly World Tour season is about to pick up. So definitely check those out if they're in your area. They're free events and great opportunities to collaborate and ask those dying questions in person and do some learning as well. There's also several Dreamin' events happening, as you can see, all over the globe, really. Snowforce is starting here next week, and then we've got Southeast Dreamin' next week as well, and just a lot going on. So definitely check those out. Encourage you to register for those events, as these are put on by community members, so user group leaders, some MVPs, etc. And it's a great chance to network and again do some learning at the same time. And then we always encourage you to join, whether it's virtual or in person, your local community groups. Just a quick coverage of what MVP Office Hours is about. Right, we're here for helping out, right? So everyone participates, and it doesn't matter if you're an MVP or not. Share your experiences, give your input. If it's something you've run into in the past, please share it out. We're here to help each other out, and just because it's an open call, we just ask you to mute yourself so that we can easily hear answers, questions, etc. If you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand in the meeting, or you can just post in the chat, or occasionally we will ask for questions, and you can just go ahead and speak up. We can certainly see who's speaking, but it helps if you just announce yourself when you are asking or answering. And then the chat is also great for posting resources and links. So as you'll see as we get going, if you have a resource you want to share, whether it's a helpful blog or a help article or whatever it may be, post those in there. I will be recording those as we go, and we'll post this deck out to our community group on the Trailblazer community for you to use. And lastly, we are global as MVP Office Hours. So we have a site, mvpofficehours.info. This allows you to get all the information about all of our different MVP Office Hours groups, and also allows you to, if I go to it real quick, I always like to show it because it gives a little bit better effect here. Of course, my internet's going to slow down as soon as I try to load it. So give it a second here. This allows you to come in and see all of the different groups that we have going on, as well as subscribe to our emails. So Jackie runs this portion here, and what this allows you to do, right, just subscribe to our email list. And if you want to unsubscribe, you just reply, time, and we'll take you off. But if you want to receive email reminders of each MVP Office Hours, then we'll send you that email there, and you can do that directly from mvpofficehours.info. So with that, let's go ahead and kick off the call. Who wants to kick us off with the first? Marty is quick to the button there. Let's hear it, Marty.
Hi, thank you. I think it's a quick question. Somebody I'm working with is setting up Inbox with Outlook 365 because I can't duplicate anything because I'm not on their email. They had a situation where a account was created as a duplicate, and I think the only way this would happen would be if the matching rules don't match, and therefore it would create what appears to be a duplicate. true?
Can you repeat that one more time? Make sure
Yeah,
I
sure.
fully caught that.
Yes, if somebody's using Outlook 365 with Inbox,
Mhm.
when it's syncing, the system, Salesforce should not create a duplicate. It's just using the account duplicate matching rules. And if it finds something that it thinks matches, and I will say that they have a lot of accounts that don't have a lot of other data other than just account name. So if it doesn't match on a account matching duplicate rule, those words are in the wrong order. If it's using Outlook 365 or any inbox, Gmail, etc., it should not create a duplicate. It's still using those rules, in other words.
Well, that's a good question. I believe it should. I don't know if anybody else on the call has had experience in that.
One thing to check. Can you hear me?
Yep, thank you.
Marty, there's two options for duplicate rules in terms of the alert level. You can set it to report only, or you can set it to alert. So that's the first thing I think to check. Make sure the rule's active, of course. But
Right.
if it's set to report only, it will actually allow you to create it still. It'll just add it to a report of duplicates and flag it for visibility. So that'd be one thing to check. I don't know if you've already looked at that.
Yeah, I am pretty positive though. Yeah, as long as your duplicate rules and it hits the rule, it shouldn't allow that to be created. Meaning that I'm pretty sure that the duplicate rules apply to records coming in via the API. I was trying to find an article that said exactly that, but
it definitely does if you have it on alert, because I ran into that with the data load.
yeah, there you go.
Rule.
You are correct. It is set to allow as opposed to
Okay. So that's something you configure if you want to allow that or not.
Perfect. So if I set it to block, which I don't want to do because I'm still loading things, but if I set it to block and they're using one of the inbox, because I have another one that's using Gmail, it would not create a duplicate, but I assume it would still alert them.
That last piece you'll want to test because I haven't done it from an
Okay.
email inbox before.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks very much. Yes, that's the answer.
Awesome. Thanks, John. All right. Okay, Marcel, you've got your hand raised.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for doing all these wonderful MVP calls. We appreciate your time. Would like to know if there's anybody on this call that has any Smartsheet knowledge or have used the connection between Smartsheet and Salesforce. We are currently, or if you are a user of Aptus's XAuthor for Excel, and if you are, I would love to have some conversations with you offline. Anybody out there? We are looking at just to give a little more in depth, we are looking at replacing XAuthor technology, which is a connector from Excel to Salesforce. And we've looked at a couple of different options so far. I've had some meetings. I've actually had several meetings with Smartsheet. There are a few other Excel connectors out there, but we need to be able to duplicate two-way communication like we currently have with using Aptus's technology. The only drawback is their technology doesn't work in the cloud. There's no Office 365. It all is governed by a local Excel plugin, with an app. We've written tons of different apps for our sales guys to use. So we're just looking for a little bit different technology to run what we're doing right now.
And sorry, that's looking to pull data from Salesforce into Excel and then push data back into Salesforce?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We've actually got a pricing calculator matrix that's pretty complicated that our sales reps have to do. So it's all built out in Excel.
Yeah. And does it have to be Excel or?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't.
No Google
but
Docs.
it really does. Yeah, I wish it could do something else, but unfortunately, it has to be built in Excel because there's a whole bunch of other things, tabs that are underlining that operate from the main tab in Excel. There's actually, for those of you there with Dreamforce this past year, there was a new what is it called, the Lightning App Builder that was announced. It's actually in pilot. We've reached out to our success managers about that. Haven't heard back. That's a possible fix for getting involved. The old S-Force connector for Excel, I think, got retired in February. So it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot out there. But we're just trying to dig a little deeper. So if anybody on the call has any info to share, I'm happy to listen to you. So it'd be great. Thank you very much. That's it for me.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has. That's the reason I asked if it had to be Excel, because I've done stuff with Google Docs and a connector that works really well there, but not Excel recently, at least.
Yeah, we've got a call coming up with a company called QuickBase that may be able to help us also. So we're going to look at those guys too. So.
Gotcha.
The one piece I might be able to help contribute, I don't think that app builder you're referring to, I did see it. It looks super cool. I don't think it's going to be a dynamic replacement for a spreadsheet in the use case you're talking about. It's going to be more of a one-time, just like automatically configure all of your field types, and create your fields and import your data all at the same time. So if you have like a big spreadsheet and you want to move it into a new custom object, then it does that through a wizard. But I don't think it's a back and forth to Excel from what I've seen.
Okay, thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Hi, this is Jim Kripe. I've got a question. Has anybody been experiencing JavaScript alerts freezing the desktop in the last, since basically the last release of Salesforce? We're having a bit of that problem.
JavaScript alerts on the desktop?
Yeah, what we have is Visualforce pages that examine fields on our records, and in certain conditions, like do not call, are set on leads or contacts, we do a JavaScript alert from that Visualforce page. I know this is kind of technical, but we're finding that part of the time, and it affects Chrome and Internet Explorer, that it'll freeze Windows altogether, and users are having to reboot. And it appears to possibly be due to the browser getting confused that it's still, building the web page at the same time an alert's coming up. And we've tried all kinds of things like I'm a developer, so we're doing things like wrapping the alert call with a delay timer. JavaScript has a way to do that, and hoping that we can delay the showing of the alert box till the page load gets done and totally, the browser settles down. and we're still having issues with it. So as a plan B, we're showing our alert messages in a visual force page component in the page. We're still in Classic for most of our, well, for everybody. We're piloting Lightning in a different environment. So, the other thing that we're working on now is we have an alert showing in a text alert showing in a JavaScript page component, but we're having to put that in a page section, and once users minimize the page section, they're not seeing the alerts on the next record because Salesforce remembers what's been toggled as visible. So we're kind of in a catch-22. We're stuck with alerts, and we're stuck with putting it in the visual force page. Any other developers out there?
Yeah, any developers on the list? See if there's some names I know. I'm gonna call Igor. I'm gonna call you out. You have any thoughts here?
Other than there's some known issues that have been reported, and that's kind of known. But since this is happening in Classic, I'm not sure. In Lightning, there are some known factors related to caching, and some workarounds have been reported around freezing the Lightning desktop with some JavaScript, and that's usually due to not well-written JavaScript, or maybe the older kind of style of code.
Do you have any keywords or URLs or anything you can put to the?
Let me see if let's see this one article. How do I? Oh, here we go. Maybe this will give some clues. I personally have not seen this issue, but I kind of switched to using LWC and Lightning components a while ago, and pretty much working in Lightning most of the time now. So I don't use Java alerts. Usually it's there are different methods to pop up messages in Lightning, so that's what I use usually.
Okay, well, yeah, we have a Lightning component that does the same thing, but unfortunately, we're not there yet for everybody. Thanks, Igor.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have a good answer there.
That's okay. It gives us a little more clues to dig into.
Awesome. All right, let's go to Rhiannon. Sorry about the wait there. Thanks for being patient.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, fantastic. So I am having a little bit of difficulty with Process Builder. I am in Salesforce Classic, and I have a workflow trigger set up to run when an object in a case is set to a certain value. I want it to send an email 7 days after the last modified date, and then 14 days after the last modified date, as long as that particular specification for the object in the case is still true. But what I'm finding is that the customers are getting this email, the 14-day email typically, even after we've changed the field to not equal the specified value that would cause the workflow to trigger. And I'm wondering if I need to have two separate process builders, or like have, I don't know what the exact name for the little like diamonds are, but like have like one equal true, and then if false, then do second step. So I'm not sure if it's because I have it all in one type, like flow type action, or if it's something with the 7 days after last modified, because it's like they're still in the flow even after we've changed the field to not equal what should trigger the action.
Well, what you might want to do is put the 14-day email send ahead of the 7-day email send.
Okay.
Yeah, and then tell it not to execute the next step. And that way the 14 days you won't be at 14 days, so it'll follow through and do the 7-day.
Okay, so then it would do the, so would it do the 7-day with the 14-day in front of it then?
Yeah, well, if your conditions are set up right, it won't match the 14-day rule, so it'll fall through to the 7-day rule. So that would probably fix it for you. Because if you don't have any other settings on the field other than you're going to do it at 7 days and 14 days, that would, without coding, that would probably fix it for you.
Okay, so if I'm, then just to be clear, because I'm not super process builder savvy, so you've got like your starting point and my starting object is the case, and then I have my first thing it evaluates is whether the activation instructions are sent, and then it goes over to true, and then it goes to the time lapse. So what you're saying is have the value be there and have the 14-day time lapse be there, and then go down to the 7-day? Is that my understanding?
Well, I haven't done a time lapse on a case. I was thinking that you were setting like the case age, and you're looking for cases that are over a certain age. I wish there was a way you could share your screen.
I can't.
Yeah, here.
Are these things, so when you're having this issue, are you firing a time-based actions of Process Builder?
Yeah, so it's the time lapse, and I've got it set up so that it's 7 days after the last modified date. If the value has not changed, then it should trigger the workflow should trigger so that it sends the email to the client notifying them we still don't have their paperwork. And then sometimes we'll get paperwork in, say at like day 10, and then we will have changed the value so that it should actually read false. But it's almost like because they're already in the workflow isn't reevaluating the value that I want it to be. That is
expected behavior, because once you enter, so this is a time-based trigger kind of thing.
Yes.
It caches the information, and when you change the data afterwards, it will not reevaluate in the Process Builder. It will just continue waiting for that same condition to occur.
Okay.
So once you kick that off, if you have several time-based triggers set up in Process Builder, or time-based actions, I should say, call them correctly. Under the covers, they are triggers, but whatever. I think they will not reevaluate, but keep the original values because that's kind of been scheduled already.
Okay.
So it's that there has to be some other kind of solution for that if you wanted to reevaluate.
So
Yeah.
then I would probably have to set up a second, like I could either, I guess, do two separate workflows. Like if I got out of Process Builder, I could do two separate workflows and say one if it's been 7 days, and then do a second one and then say it's 14 days.
It sounds like you need some way to cancel out these things too. I've not done a delayed event, so we have something similar for that for another record type. And what we did was we set up a scheduled job that looks for records that have aged a certain amount to do our activities.
Okay.
But that was.
I know it works with workflow rules. I haven't done it with Process Builder, so this is interesting for me to learn, because I did something very similar with workflow rules and email alerts, and they would cancel out.
Okay, maybe that's what I'll do. I really like Process Builder because it's all in one, and I hate having like two almost identical workflows, but I think that's probably the only way to kind of like circumvent this, other than adding a new criteria to the existing workflow, or the existing Process Builder, which I'm not sure if that would work as well.
I don't think another criteria would solve your scenario.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
It'll still trigger and queue up.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that definitely helps me. Thank you so much for the info, Guy. I appreciate it.
Actually, I do have one other idea.
Oh, okay.
If you mentioned criteria, and my initial thought goes to the criteria node. Potentially, if you put the criteria on the action itself instead of on the criteria node, then it wouldn't trigger the action.
I was shouting that.
So if I were to put the criteria on the action itself. In Process Builder, you're talking?
Yes.
Okay.
So not where you typically think of putting criteria in the criteria node, but on the actual action, there's an option to like only run if certain criteria are met.
Got it. Yes. Okay, I found it right now, where it says add action.
That might do the trick for you. Obviously,
Okay.
test it and see if I'm right and tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay. That's definitely a good idea. I will try both and I'll see what I come up with.
One of them should work.
Exactly. One of them will work. All right. Awesome. Thanks again.
Awesome. All right, let's go to John Martinez. You had your hand raised.
Hello, I'm actually on the phone too, just because I don't have speakers on my laptop. Quick question for the group, and actually kind of two questions. I'm a new admin and was looking for a better way to track changes. So for change tracking. So I've obviously been doing all my updates, et cetera, in the sandbox, and then just trying to keep an idea of everything that I've done when I finally go to push the production, not to forget anything, not to, I guess not forget anything is kind of the best case. And then just a second, just to put both questions out there because they are similar. The second part of that is all my changes for this release are just field additions, field updates, and UI page layout changes. And again, being a newer admin, I can't really find a lot of information, or haven't been able to find something on doing change sets, if that would even work with this, or would it just be logging in production and actually doing the changes right there, just like I did in the sandbox? Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, you can look at. Have you looked at the setup audit trail? It doesn't give you details about what you changed, but it does give you details about that you've done something. And the thing that I use quite extensively is Eclipse. I build a project with the all the components that I want to compare, and it's very handy when you're deploying to production page layouts, things like that. It's a little bit difficult because what you get in Eclipse is the kind of the code for the page and layouts, but you kind of get a clue what's been changing when you're looking at page layouts, things like that. You can deploy page layouts in a change set. Thing to be aware of is users can modify their page layouts themselves, and you'll overwrite their changes. So just be aware of that.
There's if you're looking to track changes in a sandbox specifically in some kind of automated fashion, there's really no Salesforce technology that will help you to do that. It has never been for the last 10 years that I remember. However, there are vendors out there that do exactly that role. If you are deploying and using tools for deployment for your not a change set, but let's say you're using some other tools for deployment, then you certainly can track changes in a very automated fashion based on your sprints or stories or whatever. GearSet is one of those tools that very friendly for admins comes to mind. A couple other tools like Capado and a few others, they are costly, they're not cheap, but they do job really well. Now, if you're a little bit more technically savvy, kind of a little bit of admin developer person that can do command line, I would suggest looking into Salesforce DX. And maybe if you are working in a new org and maybe doing new development and new additions that are not very heavily dependent on happy soup of a massive org, You could do your development in a source-driven manner. That way, DX will track all the changes for you automatically, and you can source control it all in the packages. And it's a little bit more involved, but you could certainly do your development process in Scratch orgs, which will track everything you do, everything you touch in that org. And then you can easily extract that, put it in your project, and then source control your project, and then you deploy everything that you've done for that particular release. As an
that doesn't have free source control built into that. You have to use a cloud
well,
service.
Well, you have to use some type of source control, like a GitHub, for example, is a free source control in the cloud. But typically, organizations use some kind of source control. If it's, if there isn't anything, you could just create a GitHub account and do a repository. Now you can do private repositories on a free account on GitHub, so that certainly helps. Bitbucket, other options, but that requires a license. Yeah,
backups to the cloud are handy. What I do is in Eclipse, for quick and dirty, I create new Eclipse projects, and I put the date in the project name, and I kind of do a backup there. And what's handy with that is you can then diff the different backups and see what's changed over time or from an environment to environment.
I'll tell you, there's one thing I found really helpful. There's definitely a lot of great programs for deploying, like StrongPoint's another one, but there's a free Chrome plugin that only works in Classic, but just switch to Classic for your deployment. It's great, loads faster anyways. Everything else I'm pro Lightning. But for this change set is called, let me hover over here, Salesforce Change Set Helper, and it allows you to sort all your components. So when you go to add, let's say add custom field, you can sort all your custom fields by last modified date and by who changed them. So it can help build change sets a lot faster based on what components have been modified.
Cool. I wouldn't.
That's not a versioning or deployment repository, but it can definitely speed up tracking differences. For free.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for anything automatic. It's we're only 30 users or 30 licenses, so it's a really small org. Just more, if my boss says to me, hey, what changes are you pushing? Right now, I'm just dumping them in an Excel document, which works completely, but it's not the prettiest So awesome. Thank you very much for all of your help from everyone.
Awesome. All right. Let's go to Jen. You had your hand raised.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
So my question is really simple. But before that, I wanted to go back to that lady who asked about the time-based workflow, and I wanted to just point it out. You only create one workflow, and you have 2 time triggers on your workflow if you're going that route. Most of them would qualify the 7 and 14 days, but when they disqualify based on that field, then they would both be taken out of the 7 and 14 days. So you have 1 workflow, 2 actions.
Right. Thank you so much, Jen.
Okay. And then to my question, I wanted to know if there's a way to do a list view to see my team's opportunities. I don't see it, and I've tried it, and I said my opportunity teams is what I see. It's very basic, but I can't believe there isn't anything that's my team's opportunities.
This is Marty. I just asked that question yesterday in a webinar, and the answer I got was no, it has to be done in a report because the team is not available in list view.
Okay. Okay.
If someone thinks differently,
thank you.
Well, how are your roles set up? Or if your roles are set up to so that you have people under.
I do have my role hierarchy.
Yeah. Well, you should be able to see
everything.
Oh,
No, because my
but if you're set to,
opportunities are not private. My opportunities are
Oh.
not private in my org-wide settings, so they see
Okay.
everything. Yeah.
okay, yeah, you'd have to have some handle that you could lock onto.
I mean, I've got a workaround, but I was kind of hoping I wouldn't have to use that workaround. Is that I would have a user ID formula, and if that user ID is equal to whoever is logged in, then show me only those where I'm the manager. But it's not. I kind of was hoping that I wouldn't have to do it that way, because that's another field that I have to maintain.
Yeah, you could
But
do
if there
that
isn't, but
in a. Yeah, you can do that in a report. That'd probably be the easiest way to do it.
yeah, no, the ask was for a list view.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
It'd be nice if they had a way that you could do related lists and get into those in list views. I guess that's for the idea exchange, though. At least for
All right.
filters.
Yeah, that's long been a bit of a struggle there. All right, who else has a question?
I'll go a question I haven't figured out if there is a good answer for, but if anybody knows, it would make me really happy. Is there a way to tell which connectors or applications are using API calls when you're using the same connector account?
Can you explain this question again?
Yeah, so let's say you have two different installed applications that sync data, use API calls. Is there a way to tell how many API calls are used by which connector when there's the same user account credentials they're using?
Do these accounts connect and disconnect? Because you can look, you've probably got a dedicated user that you're using on these APIs.
So here's one question for you. These are just random API connections, or are they actually authorized applications that you integrated with your org and they have authorized connected apps associated with them?
Some of them are custom developed API connections.
Okay, so if they are,
and others would be like LinkedIn Sales Navigator or something like that, or
so usually those packaged applications all require a connected app, as far as I know. If you custom build one, you typically need one anyway, but sometimes you can, Salesforce provides a default one, so you kind of, could use that to cheat a little bit. I would suggest for the custom build ones, build the connected apps, and then on the connected app, I think you could see how many connections it makes. There are some statuses and reporting that connected app, not reporting, but you could see like how many connections it made or how many calls or something of that sort. That way you, even if it's the same user, but the connected app tracks what this particular application did versus the other.
And would you see that under installed application or installed packages?
No, it's not going to be installed package. It's going to be under applications that will be connected apps. If you are in the Lightning, then it will be under App Manager, and there will be like a connected apps area. Or there's actually in Classic, you could look for connected apps. You could find it. I don't know exact path right now, but there's in Lightning is a little bit confusing how to get there, but the term used in Salesforce is called connected app.
Yep, connected manage. Yes, I see that here. That's helpful. Thanks. Yep. Sweet. That's under App Manager. I like that.
Awesome. All right. Looks like James, you get your hand raised again. Go for it. All right, Jen, do you have a question? Another question?
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I was on mute. So my other question was, I'm trying to make a call out to a web service on a change. Is there a way? What's the best way to do it if I had to send fields from multiple objects? I can't do it in one web service, right? I have to do it in multiple. And I'm doing an outbound call. Hello?
Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Was my question clear? Or
Yeah, you want to
maybe
go
no?
restate it, and then maybe we'll see if somebody can jump on it.
What was that again?
Yeah, go ahead and restate it just so.
So yeah, so I'm making an outbound message. I'm sending an outbound message to to our integration tool, a ETL tool, using a workflow, and I'm sending fields from 2 objects, and I haven't figured out a way to do it in one workflow, or did I have to create multiple workflows? And what's the best way to do that?
That's a good question. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, at least I feel good that I'm not the only one that's stumped on how to do it.
Yeah, I'd recommend posting that out into, if you haven't already, post that out on the Trailblazer community in the answers portion, and feel free to cross-link that post into the MVP Office Hours group.
Okay, yeah, I haven't posted it. I'll just post it then. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, who else has a question? Anybody have a question? Got about 11 minutes left. How about this? Any cool new features that people want to throw out there that they've been using in the spring release?
I just say the new flow builder is awesome.
Agreed.
I've been enjoying that very thoroughly.
Yes, so much nicer to look at, to use.
To create the correct variable that I'm wanting to for the right scenario. That was the hardest part, knowing what type of variable to create.
And be able to debug the flow and see what's happening in it. The only thing that's missing is the good lookup component that comes out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
The what lookup?
The lookup component doesn't exist in the new flow builder. So you'd have to load some third-party Aura components to be able to do lookups appropriately, and they're usually pretty cumbersome to deal with. So I was always wishing to have. I actually posted an idea about that. There's no lookups in by default out of the box.
That would be nice.
We're having, I raised my hand. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. We are, as I said, we're starting to pilot Lightning. And one of the things we're doing is we have tight requirements on what's supposed to happen on a lead convert. So we've set up a quick action that calls a class that calls the database convert, and all that's cool. We're doing all that just very well. We get our resulting records from the lead convert, the account, contact, and opportunity were populated as we wanted. But one of the things we're finding is we need to spread this quick action everywhere where it's possible to convert a lead, including in the path. And so, the sales path, and there's a lead convert up there, and we're trying to figure out how we can override that. You get the standard Lightning lead convert page there, and we need to override it. Has anybody had any? It's a real corner case, I'm sure. Not too many people have had to do that. I'll probably have to post it to the developer groups.
Yeah, I don't have anything unless somebody else does. I'd definitely recommend post that developer groups and then post that back over to MVP office hours.
Okay, yeah, I'll cross-link it.
Perfect. All right, any other questions, thoughts people want to throw out before we wrap up? All right, going once, twice. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it there. We only got about 6 minutes left anyways, so appreciate everyone jumping on. Great questions and answers, everybody pitching in. Like I said, if you've got a question that we weren't able to answer, definitely feel free to post that to one of the the groups and then cross-post that over in the MVP Office Hours group. And we'll share the recording out here shortly, and everyone have a great weekend. Thank you.